early rumors that they might abandon the high end. So like the 7900 XTX might not have an equivalent, and so far it doesn't.
Hello.
We had talked
My voice, man.
flagship. We also talked about does AMD
Hello.
need better ray tracing performance? How important is that? So where are we now? Because AMD, you and I, we both talked about.
I haven't been talking a lot
Don't f this up.
for the past 2 days.
50 series disaster.
So hearing my own voice is kind of weird.
Did they f it up? And second question, do you think they are still at risk of f***ing it up?
I don't think they did, given what they what they had available and what they could do. Because you could say they did by not having a 5090, for example, or 5090 competitor, I should say.
Right.
That was just never going to happen. So that is what it is. So I don't think that was necessarily miscalculation on their behalf, because I'm not sure how technically viable that was and all the other things.
I don't know that they
there.
could make a 5090 competitor.
Yeah, so I can't comment too much on that one. Now, the important one was the 5070 series. And I was certainly very concerned that was going to go pear-shaped. We made a video, I think we made multiple videos. We may have made 3 or 4 videos pleading with AMD not to be AMD.
Yeah.
And I know you made a video which pretty much said all the same things we said. Not saying you copied us, but you probably did. No, I think we were all on the same page.
I actually just re-uploaded your video, and then I used AI to swap us.
I think it was Tim. Turn Tim into me.
Yeah.
So, well, it was good use of AI. But no, we're all on the same page. We said very similar things. And we were really right about our suspicions with what they were doing. So I've heard from some people that made us privy to some internal discussions that right at the last minute at CES, they actually pulled the plug on it. It was going to be, I'm not exactly sure if it was 650 or 700. Some people have said 700 they wanted to charge. Others have said 650. It was one of those two numbers.
Well, that whole thing was weird, right? Because you probably got pre-briefed also on the 97s.
We pre-briefed them in the end.
Yeah. So the way, a lot of times the way it works is for big keynotes at events, typically the big silicon companies will do a pre-briefing. Here's the slides we're going to show. The benefit of that is everyone has more time to sit down and actually read it and think about it and not just race each other to publish something that's kind of halfway put together. But what was interesting with that one was I remember publishing the video and there were a lot of comments like, AMD didn't announce the 9070s. Yeah, and it was almost to the effect of like all these guys doing news, they got something wrong. They were talking about 9070s, they didn't say 9070 on stage.
Yeah.
So it's really weird because they yanked it at the last minute.
So yeah, the plan was to go for at least 650, somewhere between there and $700 US. There was thankfully one AMD employee I've heard that had been paying attention, not just to our reviews, but general online sentiment, I'd say. I said, look, we can't just knock $50 to $100 off. We've done that previously. And
Come on, man.
And so they decided to play the game. So they did the whole $600 US MSRP, which is not what they wanted to charge. They wanted at least $50 to $100 more than that. But they played the game and they subsidized the initial wave of cards. And I do think, certainly towards the end of this year, I've heard supplies going to ramp up quite a bit and you'll get the Super Series coming in. So I think that's when we'll hit MSRP pricing and maybe even for the first time dip below that, which is, I know, is a big call. But I think that side of things will improve towards the end of the year. But now I've seen some people say, well, clearly, Gamers Nexus or Harbor Unboxed were wrong because they've said they can't charge, more 650. Like it's not going to sell well. It's going to be not really recommended, and it's going to tank and just be another AMD Radeon fail. But they're selling for more than that. So clearly you're wrong.
Sure, yeah.
And I spoke to some, I can't say who I spoke to. I spoke to some people about this. And basically what's happened is what we expected to happen. So they've debated us somewhat with the price.
Yeah, but not in the good direction.
Not in the good direction. Opposite to what they normally claim to be doing.
Yeah.
But it got positive reviews. It looked like they were, being the saviors in a way. A lot of online hype. It wasn't just with reviewers. I think reviewers were probably a bit more cautious than anything.
Yeah.
I know we cautioned people about the price, but it doesn't matter what we say. There's the $600 US MSRP. A lot cheaper than $750, which was at $900.
There were weird things with all that because, I remember doing the video right after the launch where we kind of went through the launch cycle for day one. And you're starting the video with like small, scrappy savior of gaming startup AMD. Launch day for the RX 9070 series came and went for small, scrappy savior of gaming AMD, pulling itself up by its $163 billion bootstraps. And it told us all that this one is for the gamers. But then you looked at the Micro Center stock, which was really interesting. So we got those stock numbers. And some of the stores, it was actually around, if I remember correctly, like half of the inventory was technically MSRP.
That's an interesting story as well.
Yes. And
I think people are getting bored of 6v6.
probably the same thing.
Yeah, only some of the initial MSRP, like I think it was 40% of the initial wave was subsidized and created all kinds of problems.
And some of that inventory was already out in the channel before they officially announced the price. Because some of these cards were showing up in Taiwan in like early January, late December. And that was obviously well before we got the $600 mark price.
So the effect there is reviews are largely positive. I think they really were all positive. People are really excited because all they're saying is $600 US and the competing parts are $900 US. So it's a massive price difference. And it is legitimized at the start. Like people are actually getting them for that price. So in your head, it's $600. Like I can get one. But now demand's so extreme, so look, I'll pay $650, I'll pay $700 because it's still way cheaper than the alternative. So they just keep selling, and people keep getting sucked into buying them at the higher price. So by playing the game, AMD has finally had a win.
Is it a shallow victory?
No, I don't think so. Look, I don't want to seem like I'm standing here going, "Good job, AMD," you know. Fake MSRPs are the way forward. Good job. Like I'm not happy about them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when your competitor is so overwhelming and they're doing that tactic,
It's also fake MSRPs.
and they've tried sort of being more. I think people will agree. Previous generations, AMD has been more honest with their pricing. It's been more accurate. The pricing just hasn't been great to begin with.
Right.
And because they're only 10% or whatever, 15% cheaper than GeForce. You and I end up basically saying, you can sort of go either way, but you're missing out on these features and they're probably worth paying a premium for. But in this instance, we did get better ray tracing and FSR4 and stuff, so that really sweetened the deal on top of the attractive pricing. So, yeah, it's a situation where they said $600, it's probably more like $700.
On DPS.
But it still sold really well. Now, if they had been honest and said, look, we're going to come in $700, we're going to do the $50 off because we feel like that's a great discount, the reviews would have been lukewarm. Probably just buy GeForce or wait for those cards to come down because you are getting a superior feature set.
Well, AMD has also established that they're willing to drop the price $50 in a heartbeat if they aren't selling any.
And that's a big problem. And I spoke to some of their partners and they said, look, they all laughed because I made a big deal out of the 1700 XT. I had an argument with AMD on the phone about that because when it was $900, I had the thumbnail of it being chucked in the dumpster.
Yeah,
dead on
I remember
arrival.
that one.
As you can imagine, that didn't land super well with AMD.
I was in the rain in Taiwan reviewing that one.
So they didn't like that, and I told them on the phone, look, the reason why this sucks is because it's not good value at $900. It's actually a joke at that price. They told us they had the most 7900 XTs to sell.
Okay.
So we thought they would make that part competitively priced.
Yeah.
And anyway, I told them on the phone, look, the frustrating thing about this is we've given it a negative review, and I can guarantee you in 1 to 2 months, it's going to be 700.
And it might have been more like 3 in the US, but yeah, it dropped to 700.
I think I said 750 to them, and my contact, who I do get along well with, but he was annoyed at the time, he said, you know what, I'm putting that in my calendar, and we'll see who's right. And we made some sort of fair part of that. And anyway, yeah, he was like, all right, you're right on that one. So I said to them, look, we don't want to see that again. Because people don't re-review the product. This is a bad value product that stinks.
Yeah.
And then they turn it into a great product only months later.
And it's really frustrating because we bought the Hellhound, the Power Cloud Hellhound for, what is it, 700.
And I waited 6 fucking minutes for this shit.
That was within months of launch. It was actually really exciting at that price.
I'm just gonna go back to...
And so we did the revisit, okay, we like it now. But then the frustrating thing...
Fucking solo ulted the crap out of me.
It guys, if you had launched at this price, the reviews would have been positive, and you might actually have sold them pretty well.
Probably would have upsold
I didn't expect that. That was completely my fault.
out. People wanted them, and it has this really positive vibe around the brand and their price, which is what we're seeing right now.
Well, and a lot of consumers, they might not recheck the reviews, so revisits are less common, but then they also tend to be lower view count.
They don't create the hype.